Now to the sabbatical. My study leave, at first it was going to be vacation, then it turned into study leave because the deadline is fast approaching for the Lilly Foundation grant. And it's a pretty exhaustive application process. And I need to have you formally approve of the broad outline of the proposal. And so, of course, in the broadest outline, we're good with Jeff taking a sabbatical. But then we have to hone it down and say, well, what's the length, what's the theme, and when are we talking about? And given what I share with you now, I'm hopeful that you will say, okay, that sounds good. And we won't get all the fine tuning done, but it will be enough to authorize me to turn in this proposal saying it's passed muster with you all. I do have, I suppose, about 10 typed pages so far that outline the proposal that I've sent to the planning team to edit. And in a day or two, when I've got their edits in, I'll send you, it'll still be a rough draft, but it won't be the roughest draft that I've just given to them. So you'll get really the P's and Q's down to how much I've budgeted for refreshments on the Bon Voyage reception, you know, that kind of thing. So the impulse in the grant is that it be something that makes your heart sing. So you can say sing, dance, happy juice, refreshment, but that becomes the litmus test. Is this something that excites Jeff? And because it excites Jeff, you're excited for me. And something that is not only exciting, but is something that is a spiritual investment or a spiritual way of deepening. And when I went through what makes my heart sing, I came up with the fact that I love color. And I've cited this from growing up in Alaska near glacial aquamarine ice and abalone shells with their blues and pinks when they're empty, to Puerto Rico and swimming with schools of tropical fish above orange and black coral. And you can see some of this here even spilling out, that as I've come to the church, we've done color things like put a stained glass orb behind the plain wood cross that we had in the front of the sanctuary. And so my spade work was to go, well, it's not just color. Color manifests in lots of directions, like I just said, from tropical fish to sunsets. But a couple of things really come to me, and that is, whenever I travel, I love to look for a garden or an arboretum. It brings the outdoors. It brings a chance to walk, to see God's good creation that way. And so I shopped around for where are some of the world famous gardens. And then I piggybacked on it. Where are some of the world's most famous stained glass? Where are some of the world's most famous mosaics? Where are some of the world's most colorful architectural features? Where in the world is some of the most geological colorful features? Now, once I say most famous in the world, you might think, wow, this is really dreaming big. I mean, where is he talking about going? And I will say that when you look through the archives of grants, for example, Tim at Eastminster traveled to Vietnam with his whole family, and then to Bali with his whole family, then to Madagascar, and then to Lake Powell in a houseboat. And so, yeah, it is like go big or go home. Okay. So if you think, well, he's dreaming big, yeah. And sometimes, in some ways I kind of put my head down and go, this seems kind of far-fetched, but I think that's in a sense what they're asking for, not to be timid, but to do something that's of a once in a lifetime nature. So the plan that I'm looking at, and I'm going to talk about for me, and then I want to talk about for the congregation, because it's a sabbatical for the both of us. It has a little different feel to it for you than for me, but they parallel and connect. So the initiating part is for me to get out of Dodge and let the dust settle. That's a recommended thing. So my first leg will be to go with Denise to St. John, Virgin Islands. That is a place that I vacation. We camp there in the campground many a times. There's a national park there. And as I grew up in Puerto Rico, we would just hop the ferry, go over there, camp on St. John's, snorkel all day. And so that's the very beginning little bit. But then come back, pack, and jump over to basically France for about 7 weeks. And I say basically France, it'll be a rotation, 90% of it is in France, but we'll go first to southern France to see the lavender fields in bloom. And to get there, the easiest airport to come into is Barcelona, which has a convenient factor for something I'll tell you about at the end of the itinerary, or near the end of the European part of the itinerary. So we'll go from the lavender fields to, if you were to Google top most colorful villages in the world, you're going to come up with Saint-Terre is one of them, 5 villages on the coastline of the Mediterranean, where they're all painted little homes. And I get an Airbnb there. There are hiking trails between the 5 villages, and it's considered one of the most beautiful hiking areas in Europe. Then we'll go to Aube, France. That's spelled A-U-B-E. And we're going there because that's where my friend Peter and his wife Sandy have a home. He's a retired Anglican priest. And he also was a specialist on pilgrimage for his diocese in Canterbury. So a sabbatical is in some sense a pilgrimage. So we'll not only connect with friendships and have the restorative parts of that, but we'll get to talk about pilgrimage. And they have a guest cottage as part of their home, and we're welcome there for a number of weeks. And as part of that, he and I will go to an abbey called the Abbey of St. Wadril, and we'll do a silent retreat there. And then we will rotate down, Denise and I will rotate down and see, for example, Monet's garden in Gavini, and the Chartres Cathedral with its famous stained glass. And then emerge from France back to Barcelona. I said that was convenient, not only because it's the closest major airport and the cheapest one to fly into, but it's in itself, it has 2 major stained glass works in all the world. And so we'll be able to see that. It's just $130 round trip to go from Barcelona before flying back to the United States to Morocco and visit the blue pearl of Morocco called Chef Chaouen. And again, if you look for the most colorful villages in the world, this will come up as one of them. And it's one of those places where you can get a hotel for 20 bucks a night and a lot of falafels for a couple bucks. So pretty easy little jaunt to pick that up. We return to the United States and head for the Northwest. And the Northwest connects us to a friend of mine who's a psychologist and his wife, and we'll stay with them. They live near to where I was born and where my father first did his search and rescue flying. So we'll be able to go up into the Olympic Mountains, see the home I lived in when I was born. I say Olympic Mountains because my parents put me on their backs and did backpacking up there. And I've got little pictures of me when I was 2 years old, standing next to a line of fish on a rock that we had caught in the lakes and streams. That also affords us to jump to Victoria, Canada, right across the Puget Sound, where is the world famous Butchart Gardens. And right next to it is also one of the most famous butterfly gardens in the world. So if you get the themes, we've got gardens and we've got that. I meant to mention that on the way, the flight is easy to drop into Yellowstone and see the Great Prismic Spring, which is one of the most colorful geological expressions of God in the world. When we're in the Northwest, we'll take a cruise up to Alaska. That will give me a chance to see Ketchikan, where we were stationed, actually the Annette Island off of Ketchikan. And it'll take us on up to Fairbanks. And the point of getting to Fairbanks at this time, just like I tried to time it to get to the lavender fields in Provence, this will be trying to get to Fairbanks by the equinox, the fall equinox, when it's particularly good for seeing the northern lights. So again, another form of color. On the way back, we will stop in Chicago for 3 days. That's where I did my first church ministry. So I'll get a chance to see the first church I ever served. And it's also where I did my first silent retreat. So we'll go to the Cynical Sisters Retreat House and do a culminating silent retreat and then return home. So that gives you the itinerary infused with color. It's about out of doors, walking, and then adding the spiritual practices each day of journaling, praying, and scripture meditation. And it's got punctuated in the middle and end intensive silent retreats. And it also has the enrichment of connecting with friends from of old. Then on the parallel side for the congregation, what is colorful for the congregation? And what I've noted is that not only like doing that, we were supportive and we liked the stained glass orb, but I've been in congregations where you didn't have to look far to find a lawyer or a doctor. We don't have that many lawyers or doctors in our congregation, but what we don't have to look very far for is artistic people. If you were at the sunrise service, we had artistic people who had the craziest, most beautiful Easter hats on that they had fashioned. We have Ellie, who started adorning our bulletins at Advent and Easter, and then those are now beautifying the walls of our narthex, along with what like Vicki Beyer has done. And so what we would do is try to call forth some of those artists that we have in the congregation and elevate their gifts. And one of the ways we've talked about doing this is, and what's consistent with our community. First of all, it's not just artists in our church, but there are artists in our community. Like we've got the artist club just a block from our property, right? And if you read the Barefoot Tattler, every month there's an artist of the month that's featured in there. And so there's a way in which this could engage us with the artists in our community, not only in our church, but in the community, and be not only beautifying and expressive, but missional as well. One of the things that is in this area is murals. And so we talked about whether there might be some readiness to explore doing a mural project as a congregation together on the thrift shop. Susan's amenable to that. I think it gives us a chance to do something besides hanging of the greens with the Teen Challenge kids. And we're out of the way, and I can picture somebody say, well, that church, the one with the thrift shop that has that mural on it. So it could be a way of not only when we drive up, making us smile by what we see over there and kind of enhancing our entry into worship, but be a part of making us more known in the community. And that would be a main piece of it. The others would be to say, we would have, for example, Julianne host a Saturday morning mini retreat where we would come together at 9 or 10 and have refreshments. And then get Sherry, who's been doing our flowers, to come in with flowers and to talk about who she is, how she got into the business, how she thinks of God through this. And she might, bring some flowers for us to try our own arranging, and then have it kind of wrapped up with a prayer for her and thanking God for what he had taught us and what we got to do together by visiting together while we were in that. And if she wanted to invite people into the back of her shop as a PS, then we could get in our cars and go do a little on-site visit. Same idea with the man and company who's right here in Vero Beach that did the stained glass for us, also did the stained glass at the Catholic Church in Sebastian, and had the same kind of questions, refreshments, and so forth. So we would have kind of spiritual visits into color and also kind of a work project. And there are other little spinoffs that you'll see. Like I said, I've gotten down to having to price what paint would cost if we were to do that. The grant is for $50,000. So what I have described to you, I have budgeted down to what the ferry costs from Port Angeles to Victoria and from Victoria to Vancouver. A driver and a passenger is one price, and then you have to add the other passengers in for the pricing. So I've got all of that out there and have brought it to a grand total of $50,000, where 15 of that is for our use to cover pulpit supply and pastoral care and paint and refreshments for Teen Challenge when they're helping us and such. Speaking of covering bases when I'm gone, how do we do the pastoral stuff? The plan is to have you all run your committees as normal, and we don't usually meet in July, but in and I'd be here for June. But in September, August and September, the ones I'd meet, the presbytery would give us a moderator. And then Mindy has agreed to do pastoral care. And I've put in the budget for, I think, 5 hours of pastoral care visits a week that we give her a stipend for. And then there are other things like asking that Congregational Life organize 4 people every Sunday, different people every Sunday, to take the guest preacher out for lunch. And the sabbatical grant pays for everybody's lunch. And so it gives us a chance to fellowship with one another and also get to enjoy that somebody else is paying for it. And so that's the general plan. And I'm open to answering any questions or hearing any comments that you have about it.
Pastor Marshall, do you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. When is this sabbatical to take place? From when to when?
If granted, it would happen from mid-June of 2022 to mid-September of 2022. The application is due on April 21st. You get a notification of success or failure at the end of August.
Okay, thank you.
Right. So it could be at the end of August. It didn't fly, and you have a chance. I have a chance either to do a very modified something or other, and get away, or to submit the application a second time and see if it'll work for 2023. So that's the time frame.
Thank you.
Have you, for the person for pulpit supply, would you think of one person that would do that, or different persons?
Well, yeah, I'd be open. My first thought of one person doing it was Julianne. Julianne just said, look, we need to talk. It's not that simple. And so I've called her a couple times, and she said that she's really busy and really can't talk about it till Friday morning. That leads me to believe that she isn't going to be able to just do it from front to start. She may be able to take on half the Sundays or a quarter of the Sundays, and that's not all bad. I think there's something nice about the continuity, and we have a good friendship with her. But I think people also enjoy seeing Dan Williams come, for example, or Cheryl Carson. And so right there in the office, we have 3 that could cover 3 weeks. And it's possible that Mindy would do one besides her pastoral care. And then I know that we also typically will have Teen Challenge come for a Sunday each year and do a program. And we have Special Gathering, and we ought to schedule them so that they carry the freight for 2 services. So right now, if you say, okay, the 3 in the office, those 2 missions, Julianne doing 3 or 4, now you're up to 9 of the 12 weeks you've covered. And if all else fails, we'll just pass out straws, and whichever one of you draws the short one gets the other week. Okay, so
we could do a lay-led service for one of those Sundays.
We sure could. We've done that, and that's been enjoyable. One of the things that I've tried to work with is going away when it's a slower time for the church. So in otherwise, don't do your sabbatical at Christmas or Easter, right? But the other thing that for us is a little you say, well, we want it to be a congregational experience, we have kind of a congregation A and a congregation B. We have a congregation that's us with snowbirds and it's us without snowbirds, right? And so if we do all of the congregational sabbatical things in the summer when I'm gone, we leave out a lot of snowbirds. And so I've asked them if we can do a couple things just before and just after, when we might catch the last of the snowbirds before they go and the first of the snowbirds when they come back. And then right in the middle, there is a place called Abbey of the Arts, where spiritual directors do spiritual direction employing art. And the leader of that monastery, that abbey, has some online courses that kind of show up in your email and that you click on and you get to engage with on an individual pace. But they've got a 7-week, 6-week kind of thing. And they've agreed to give us a group rate right in the middle of the summer. And that would mean that if Patsy McCamick wanted to join us for sabbatical stuff with color, she could do it online from Indiana, right? So, so we try to catch people at the last before they go, the first when they get back, but also have something in the middle for those who could join us through online. There's always a send-off portion. There's a welcome back portion. There's what did I learn? What did you learn? And ways to do that around potlucks. And so what else would you like to know about? Okay, I see I've just mesmerized you.
Pastor, I ask, what does your wife think of this?
Well, she's all for it. You know, the great thing is that Lily recognizes that this is a sabbatical. When you talk about spiritual refreshment, it's hard to do that apart from other people. Now, I guess if you were some kind of hermit, you would enjoy going off for 3 months by yourself. But God puts us into families and communities. And in my case, he's put me into a marriage. And they're saying, you know, if you're going to get renewed, getting renewed with your spouse is part of the deal. So, you know, book everything with her. And, you know, you don't have to take her on the silent retreat if she doesn't want to go. But, you know, take her with you to the lavender fields, et cetera, et cetera. And so she's, you know, enthusiastic about doing that.
Can I carry your bags? Do you need someone to take care?
You need some tag-alongs? I think Marcia was trying to fill in.
I notice you have admitted. I notice you also have admitted Scotland. You're not visiting Scotland while you're over in Paris.
Oh my gosh! I should have thought that if I might have a nay vote if I didn't put Scotland in the itinerary.
Well, it sounds like a great program, and as far as I'm concerned, jump, go for it.
I'll make a motion that we authorize and approve Pastor Jeff's pursuit of the Lilly Grant as described.
Second it.
Any more discussion?
No.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Same sign. Great, thank you.